Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dick Johns, Executive Director of the Middle Atlantic PGA Section. And on behalf of the officers, board, all the members and apprentices and staff of the Middle Atlantic Section, I'd like to congratulate Peter Hodson on being the first honoree for the Willow Oaks Fall Invitational. What a great tribute that is to Peter and his work in the golf community. As you may or may not know, Peter was very active in the section for many, many years and served as the Virginia chapter officer, culminating as its president. In 1984, he was named the PGA Professional of the Year for the entire section. You all may also know that Peter was a key ingredient, the catalyst, instrumental in bringing the two state opens back together again in the mid to late 80s, the two state opens being the Virginia PGA Open and the Virginia State Golf Association Open. And as late as the 1990s, Peter was also instrumental in our negotiations with the Virginia State Golf Association regarding the handicap program that is so instrumental to both associations. So once again, congratulations to Peter. What a great evening.
Peter Hodson was born in England with golfing DNA in his genes. His father, Bert, was an international touring professional who at 19 became the youngest player ever to represent Great Britain when he played in the 1931 Ryder Cup matches at Scioto Country Club in Columbus, Ohio. As was the tradition in the earlier years of the Ryder Cup, the British side was soundly thumped by a star-studded U.S. team captained by the flamboyant Walter Hagen. But Bert returned to England with stories of golf in America that enthralled his young son Peter. 30 years later, Peter was himself among the wave of professionals from the United Kingdom who came to the United States in the post-World War II years to take jobs at golf clubs sprouting up across the land in the booming economy. How Peter wound up in the States was recounted in a newspaper article written many years later by Dick Welch. In 1961, Welch wrote in the Virginian Pilot, Peter Hodson decided he'd like to try golf in America. It was just by luck that at that time 4 pros from Tidewater, Chandler Harper, Jack Isaacs, Harry Kelly, and Tom Strange, were on a tour of England conducting golf clinics under the auspices of the Defense Department. At the Pinner Golf Club in the London suburb of Ilford, the 4 Americans were holding a clinic. "I'll never forget the time we first met Hodson," said Isaacs. "As a routine part of the clinic, we always called someone from the audience to come up and hit one of the trick clubs we had. The club was used to correct a faulty backswing. It had a hinge near the end, and if the golfer didn't swing it right, it would collapse up near the club head. Well, that particular day, the man who came up from the audience to swing the trick club happened to be Peter Hodson. He ruined the show. He swung the club perfectly 5 straight times, and Harper said, 'Get out of here, you're too good.' That chance encounter wound up with an offer from Harry Kelly, then head professional at Williamsburg Country Club, for Peter to come to the States as his assistant. Several years later, Peter received a phone call from Jack Isaacs, then at Willow Oaks, and the phone call resulted in Peter coming to Richmond to become assistant pro. Peter became head pro at Willow Oaks in 1968 when Jack Isaacs retired. Over the course of his 20-plus years at Willow Oaks, Peter befriended many, and his influence on the lives of young golfers who he tutored over the years is legendary.
My dad used to drop my sister and I off here during the summers, and we'd pretty much spend all day here, and Peter would shepherd us around and make sure we didn't get in any trouble and keep an eye on our golf swings. You know, I remember when we were kids, and myself and Hank Klein and Andrew Hodson, Peter's son, and a bunch of us jumped into Peter's station wagon, and Peter took us all down to the King's Mill at Anheuser-Busch, and all I can remember Peter talking about was Peter Oosterhouse. And Peter Oosterhouse were friends, evidently, both from merry old England. And Peter Oosterhouse was playing in the tournament. I think he might even have made a hole-in-one that time, but Peter was real excited about his buddy Peter Oosterhouse playing in the tournament. But all of us that came through the junior program here, and I guess that was almost 30 years ago, we all have very fond memories of Peter, and Peter is definitely a class act, and we always have fond memories of Peter.
But it wasn't just the juniors who felt Peter's influence. Just about every Willow Oaks member has a favorite Peter Hodson story that they're happy to tell at the drop of a hat.
What I remember most about Peter was not just Peter, and all the different characters right out of central casting that he associated himself with over the years. One particular person that comes to mind was a fellow by the name of Francis Carlton. One particular incident that I happened to be part of, when Peter and I and Francis were playing golf here at Willow Oaks back when at the old course. And Francis had hit a rather poor shot to number 10 for his second shot, and it landed in a patch of rough and went right to the bottom. Well, Peter and I had completed our shot. We're walking toward the green, and by the time we got there, the ball was sitting up like it was on a tee. And Peter turned to me and he said, "We're not having this." So he goes up and he faces and postures right in front of Francis in such a way that he knew something was coming. And Peter said, "Francis, how much do you now lie?" And Francis said, "2." He said, "2? After you've moved the ball?" And Francis, without cracking a smile, said, "Did you see that?" And Peter said, "Of course I saw that." He said, "Good eye."
Much to the chagrin of his many friends at Willow Oaks, Peter sought out new challenges in his career in 1988 and became the director of golf operations at Birkdale Golf Club in nearby Chesterfield County. Still under development when he took over, the residential golf community offered Peter the opportunity to expand his breadth and knowledge of the golf industry in an entirely new setting. Years later, he took that knowledge and his many years of experience to Lemon Bay Golf Club in Englewood, Florida. Peter guided the club through 2 major golf course renovations, and ultimately the club sought him out to take over the responsibilities as general manager, a role he filled from 1999 until his retirement in 2007. Since his days as a young golf professional growing up in England, Peter has contributed to the enjoyment of the game by thousands, young and old, who have been influenced by his love of the game and his dedication to it. We are proud to recognize Peter Hodson as the Willow Oaks Fall Invitational honoree for 2009.